So let's talk actually a little bit about the rehab, some of the limitations that you might have had when you were first injured, and ways that you found to work around not only the limitations but also to reduce those limitations, maybe even in non-expected ways. Because I know that you experiment a lot, both with your physical training and just in life, you're always looking for sort of a new way of adapting, and that might be part of the Marine adapt, overcome, improvise mentality as well. So
Yeah.
what tell me about the rehab specifically from the IED injury.
Okay. Well, first of all, when you enter a physical therapy facility, they talk a lot about normal ranges, right? And they talk about normal this and normal that. You have to also take into account that most normal people move like shit. That's just the plain facts. Most people don't move optimally. And that's what I want. I was like, I don't care what the normal is. I don't want to just walk around and be okay with it. I want to have a normal gait. I want to be able to run again. I want to have some muscle on my hip again. So I was never satisfied with okay, you're doing a good job, because their good job, to me doesn't account for shit. That's not optimal. It's just normal. Mediocre is what I would call it. So one of the first roadblocks I had that I was working on when I was non-weight bearing, because I couldn't really do a whole lot with my leg, was my elbow, and my arm was frozen in a 90-degree position at the elbow, right? And I couldn't rotate. I couldn't pronate or supinate my hand.
Big words.
Yeah, big words. Whoa, mind blown. So I was like, okay, guys, I think there's something going on. And what it was there was hardware. There's a plate in my elbow, and there was two pins that were overlapping the radius and the ulna. Two more big words, just the bones in your arm, lower arm. And I was like, I want to see how much range of motion I can get back. So I had the surgery, got them removed, and then I was able to actually rotate my hand up and down. And then they told me that given my injuries that I probably wouldn't be able to extend my elbow. I'd probably be short about 20-25 degrees.
Wow, that's pretty significant.
Yeah, that's a pretty big impairment for somebody that likes to be physically active. So I was like, okay, well, let's see if I do more than my physical therapist are asking me to do, and approach it from some different angles. Let's see how much I can get. So one of the first things I did, because I couldn't stand on my leg or use that at all, I was non-weight bearing, was swim. So swimming was the first one I had to actually reach out. So that was one of the first things that was helping me get extension in my arm. And the second thing, once I was able to stand up on two legs and do some kettlebell training, was I started doing kettlebell cleans. And if you know anything about the kettlebell clean, at the bottom, your arm is extended all the way. If assuming you can get full extension at the elbow. And it took about 6 months to get from missing 20-25 degrees of extension. Took about 6 months for me to get.
So just give us a visual representation of where your arm would lock.
So it was stuck here literally for about 3.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got it to about here. Okay, and they were like, that's probably going to be all that you're going to be able to get. You might be able to get 5 more degrees or so. And then I got from here over the course of 4 to 6 months to there.
Wow.
Which is almost full extension.
Yeah.
And if I pop a voodoo band around my elbow, I can get a full lockout. So sometimes you gotta think outside the box. Nobody was gonna tell me, hey, Freeman, you need to do some kettlebell cleans that'll help your elbow. But
yeah, I would say even the physical therapist would say you'll probably never do a kettlebell clean. That's just not within your future.
Because they're going off normal statistics. They're going off things that they learn in their medical books. And most people aren't that aggressive, but that's just how I roll, man.
No,
I
think that's great, and that's as we were kind of talking earlier about how some of these things, these ideas of being successful in certain parameters and certain endeavors, just anything you try, winds up having carry over to other things because it almost creates like a reinforcing feedback loop where you start to accept that you're going to do well, and then you learn through learning how to do a task well. It turns out that learning how to do any task well actually teaches you how to do other tasks well.
Yeah.
And so that's something setting a standard and saying I'm not gonna meet less than this standard, and then continuing to work hard for it even though it took 6 months. I mean that's a huge amount of time to just straighten your arm out.
Just chipping away, man.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the same thing can be said, for business. I could have quit being a trainer, when I first started back in 2007. The first facility that I was at, I lasted all 2 months before the rent was just breaking my bank because I had no clients. And being more of an introverted person, I'm a lot different now than I was 6 years ago. But being more of an introvert and coming straight out of the Marine Corps, the people skills were just not there.
Sure.
Right? And you also got to take into account I was still mentally recovering from my traumatic brain injury, and I had some I had some PTSD stuff that I'm not shy to talk about that type of stuff. By the way,
You shouldn't be. By the way, I know I say this probably every time I see you, but I do appreciate and I thank you for your service. My family thanks you for your service. Truly respect it. And
You're welcome, brother. You're welcome.
This whole freedom thing has really been pretty awesome, and thanks a lot for preserving it for me.
Yeah, happy to.
But talk again about. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so that was the first flop. The second flop is I went to a Globo gym, and again I was training. Like for the facility, right? And the setup was half-hour sessions. I never felt like I got enough time for people, and I was getting paid shit. So again, I could have been like, training's not for me. The way that it's set up, I don't like the way it's organized. Instead, I thought, well, maybe this style of training, this model is not for me, right? So then I went to a CrossFit gym. And that was awesome because I'm doing more coaching, more teaching, which is what I love. And then again, I could only go so far with that, and I kind of hit a wall financially. And I was like, well, what am I going to do for now? Plus, my teaching methods have changed drastically since I started doing CrossFit. Since 2007. That's a long time.
Still learning. Still adapting.
Still learning and adapting. And then I went out on my own, and that I learned again. The hardships, man, they teach you so much about yourself and what you're made of in business. And when I was completely out on my own, I had to rely on, my instincts and pursuing my passions and getting smarter about how to run my business. So it's definitely, a big learning experience. And
one of the big sort of themes that I am following is that as I study business, as I study the nature of physical training, both fitness and strength and all those things, and I study books that I've read in philosophy and taking courses in creativity. It seems that there are connections and correlations between all those things, and that finding a path and being willing to accept bumps along that road as a part of the path, and to be process oriented as opposed to like situation oriented, is something that I had to learn, and that all those things relate to happiness, because no one gets out of life without getting beaten up a time or two, and I don't mean just by people, I mean by just situations. And so if you can't accept the stress and the strain of those situations and smile through it, it's going to be very difficult, to not only like live a successful life, quote unquote, but just to be happy day to day.
Yeah, yeah, man, and that goes hand in hand. I mentioned this in a blog post a while back, but it's definitely worth mentioning again. One of the most valuable lessons that I learned in amphibious recon school down in Little Creek, Virginia. It was actually Fort Story. It was an Army base. It was on one of our rec runs. I can't remember the distance.
So define a rec run just for the uninitiated.
Rec run is like you got a heavy ass pack on your back. You got your gun and your web gear and boots and utilities, and you're running. We'd run up up hills, down hills, sand, grass, mulch, you name it. We run all these different surfaces, and some of the runs would be upwards of 14 miles, and we do them every Friday. It's like a PT event, which is graded, and you never know how far you're running, right? And you never know the routes. So it's literally like you're picking something like a tree. I'm going to that tree. Okay, where am I going next? I don't know. I'm just going to the next tree. Okay, I see some flashers up there. These little red flashers we had to put on our packs. Okay, I'm gonna go try to catch up to that guy up there. Okay. So I'm just setting these little markers, right? But if I'd known I was going to go fucking 10 or 12 miles, and all I had my mind set on and my sight set on was the goal line and how fucking far away it was, you give up after 400 meters.
Sure.
As soon as you get tired or your legs start to burn out. But if you just set those little goals like little markers, and you're focused on what you're doing in the moment, and you're living in the moment as opposed to looking down the road, that to me that was invaluable, because you never know where the finish line is. It could be your next, it could be the next 10 steps. You don't know, and as soon as you think like you're never going to get there, or you're never going to see the other side of it, and that's when you're done.
That's actually a really great point, and it goes back to kind of what I said earlier about embracing the suck. There's a certain mental cue of people who can survive very difficult situations, such as, let's just say, recon marine training or combat. And I've never been in combat, so obviously I can't speak from experience about that. But I've been through the worst financial situations you can ever imagine, and I came through it not necessarily with a negative outlook. And the thing was, I just kept thinking, almost like Dory in
Finding Nemo.
Yeah, Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming.
Right
like
on.
I am breathing today.
Yep.
Maybe I won't breathe tomorrow, but I'm breathing today. And if you're going to keep me down, you're going to have to stop me breathing in this moment. And nobody ever did. I just kept breathing. And while Dory swam, I breathed. And she has gills, I have lungs. But I think that whole idea of like set a small goal, accomplish that, and then think about the next one. Don't think about the entirety of the process, because if you do, the brain is just going to be overwhelmed, and the heart will be overwhelmed. And a heart that gives up is in a way, it's an emotional death. And so I definitely feel a correlation among what you're saying there about the idea of small little things, even in the worst case scenario. It's like, even if it's just take the next damn breath, that's an accomplishment in that moment.
Yeah.